I am Jason,
And I'm Jordan.
and this is not part of the plan.
Sorry, I gotta throw my cat out of the room. Making too much noise.
Your needy cat.
Now he's gonna meow at the door. Okay, let me start over. Hey Jason, how's it going today?
It's going all right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit tired. I'm still wearing the same pants that I got home from in work. But no, I had a whole bunch of stuff to do, and then it's fairly full on with Kai. Well, thankfully Bev's here, but no, it's good though.
Yes.
Happy to be doing the podcast and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, here with you and whoever else is listening. So yeah. But
Yeah,
now we're back to life. I'm back to Nanaimo. Guess you're back in
right.
Vernon.
Yeah, we're no longer together in Montreal. We're back to the home bases and doing this over Zoom again. So
I already
yeah,
miss in person. It was sweet.
yeah,
It's a
that was
different
pretty
feel.
cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well, we'll do it again one day.
I know next time I was always
Mm-hmm.
thinking I gotta get up to Vernon, but
Mm-hmm.
so tell me, I know you went on a bit of a trip with some students.
Yeah, you said you were feeling a bit tired, and I'm feeling a bit run down too. I think partially because I did this trip last week with a student group, and we went to the island, so not too far away from you, and hiked a good chunk of the Juan de Fuca Trail, which when I first heard about the idea of hiking that trail in April, having lived on the island and done that hike a few times and experienced the mud and the wet rainforest that is the west coast of Vancouver Island, I was a little bit skeptical, but it turned out to be a really great trip. We did experience rain, but we also had some beautiful sunny days too. And yeah, we had 16 students and a few other chaperones, and it was a really good time. I'm really glad I did it. I got to connect with these students again after a while, and not having taught them for a year now, but still have good relationships with them. And so being able to just hear their stories again and share a little bit more of my story was pretty cool and pretty meaningful. So, but it took a lot of energy out of me, and I was sharing this with you earlier. But when I got home from that trip, so we did our week together in Montreal, and that was good. It was a lot of social time, and then basically immediately when I got home, I prepared and left for this other trip. So I had about a 2 week stretch where I was like with people in fairly, I would say, intense ways, right? Like we shared a hotel room, and then we stayed at Jeff's place, and so I didn't really have my own space. And then I'm sharing a tent with another teacher, and I'm in vehicles with students, and like always having these conversations, this time with them. And so I had a lot of social time, which I was worried about, but was really good to do. And in fact, when I got home, pretty much immediately when I left the school after we cleaned up and dropped everybody off, like I had this emotional response. I just started crying. I felt the shock of kind of just being by myself again. It just kind of hit me, and I was not prepared for that at all. I actually went to, like, on the way home, even I didn't even go straight home. I went to the cemetery where Amy's buried, and I honestly haven't done that a lot, like maybe 2 or 3 times in the almost 8 months ago that when she passed, and but like I just needed to do that. And I don't know, I had a really hard time imagining going home to an empty house. And yeah, so like that strong emotional reaction was, like I said, it caught me off guard, and I found myself just releasing a lot of emotion that I've been holding in, I guess, for those 2 weeks. And yeah, so I think that's all been draining. And since like that was Saturday night, and Now it's been a few days, and you kind of get back into the routine. You start rolling again. I've been getting into coaching, and it's super busy now with coaching. We've got soccer every day and a whole bunch of games and things like that. But that's good. Like, again, it keeps me moving and it keeps me going. But yeah, I learned again, like every week or every so often, I learn something new about what it's like to go through this and learn more about myself and how I react to these situations. So that definitely taught me a lot about my need to be with people and how that is really good. And not that I can always do that, but I'm really glad I had the opportunity to hang out with good friends in Montreal, and then again with this group that was hiking, and now I'm kind of, yeah, like I said, into that coaching group, so that team, that's going to be a meaningful thing for me to do for the next little while as well.
It sounds like to me like, I don't know, you're trying to find a bit of a balance between all those things,
Yeah.
spending time with others, keeping busy with whether that be coaching or just day-to-day things, but then also, trying to allow space so that you can be present with your emotions as well. I'm sure that
Hmm.
in itself would be very exhausting and draining, so I could understand that. But
Yeah, and it's not even that I'm worried about showing that emotion in front of other people, but well, I don't know, maybe subconsciously I am, but something like prevents me from completely displaying that emotion in front of others. And so when I do finally have that alone time, that's where it's like it really comes out. Um, yeah, so I'm learning about that still, and I will keep learning about that for a long time, I'm sure.
do you feel like you were like, that's maybe like, it sounds like a trauma response at some point, but like growing up,
Mm.
like, I don't know, I didn't often see you break down or cry, like probably similar
Yeah.
to me, right? Like I didn't show a lot of, well, maybe, I don't know. But like, is that just maybe an ode to the way you have been in the past? Like, and now you're just kind of learning how to, kind of be present with your emotions or be there with your emotions. Like,
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know. I'd have to ask my parents if they thought I was like an emotional child or not. I'm not sure, but I don't think I was overly emotional. Um, Amy, when we first met, she would joke that I was a robot. So maybe that's a good sign that like I was not very good at demonstrating my emotions. She definitely brought that side out of me in a positive way, allowing me to be more real with that and and be more confident even in that. So yeah, it's definitely something that's changed in me.
lately, I've just been thinking about accepting help and what that looks like after
Hmm.
trauma or just after anything, um, loss, and what that looks like. And as I started to write down some thoughts about that, and then after discussing with you a little bit, I was like, wow, we have such different, maybe we're just in different spots with what accepting help looks like.
Mm.
And and one of my main things was the bit of expectation. Like I placed a lot of expectation on myself after cancer, and I've said that before, to get better quick. And again, there wasn't a lot of expectation around me, but I think it's everyone's thought that you just, it's been long enough. Like it's been almost 6 years since I've had cancer. Like that should be long enough. Like
Mm.
people are tired of hearing about that. Like these are the conversations I have in my mind,
Right.
and whether that's people's thoughts or not. But like, why? Like, why am I
Mm.
so just bent on getting to the end of this? Like in the last 5 years, it's been probably the most challenging emotional years, but they've been the most like dig deep type of years. Like good. Like I'm really working on becoming like more emotionally stable and just
Mm.
being able to like handle my thoughts better and handle the negatives and the positives and be more level. I was never like that. So Like, do you feel that expectation on yourself? Like, even though it's only been 8 months, like that's not very long at all. Like, do you feel
Yeah.
the expectation to move on quickly, or is it just hard to be with your thoughts in that moment?
Yeah, no, I think for myself, I don't, it's weird. It's like I don't put any expectation on myself to quickly get better because I know what I'm feeling and I know the path I'm on with this and I know how deep the loss is. And yet, when I interact with people, I do feel an expectation, not really from them or anything they do, but just almost to protect them. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I think they know where I'm at, so I don't feel like I need to like reiterate exactly how low I'm feeling. And so I don't lie about it, but I also don't volunteer a ton of information about it. So people ask how I'm doing, or when people, I don't know, ask questions about me, then depending on our level of connection, like I might not share a lot. Maybe that doesn't answer your question, or maybe that's not what you're asking, but I just, yeah, I don't feel a ton of expectation to get better, but I do feel it with showing that I'm capable of functioning, I guess is maybe one way to put it. Like I can keep going, and I don't want people to worry about me. So maybe that's part of it.
I mean, what? Let's dive into that. Like, why don't you want people to worry about you?
I
Like,
don't know.
you've gone through like a
Yeah.
very traumatic loss.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a burden? Like you're a burden to people?
Um,
Maybe burden isn't the right word, but like an inconvenience, maybe like it's inconvenience in their lives or taking up
hmm.
their time. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
It's
got
a
a
deep
couple.
question. I know. I
No,
know.
it's a great question. I got a couple thoughts about that. I know, I remember saying early on, like, I am going to be okay. I think is more talking about, say, self harm, where I wanted to reassure my family, like, I'm not going to take a drastic action with my grief. I'm going to be okay. And a family member said to me, like, okay, that's nice of you to say, but I am still going to worry about you. And, I appreciated that. Like, kind of and at the time maybe I couldn't even see it, but I recognize now, that this family member was just trying to care for me and show love, that they were worried about me. So yeah, that's part, or one example of how that's been shared with me. The thing I think about also with this is I don't want to burden people with it because I honestly don't know that people can do anything to help me, which is probably not true. I think there are little things people can do to help. I know when we were in the middle of Amy's health journey, we received a lot of physical help. People would cook meals, people were mowing our lawn. We had students come and wash windows, clean out our cars, like pressure wash around the house. Like they were looking for ways to help. And we were both quick to say, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Like we accepted that help of those physical needs. Emotionally, though, it's so much harder because I feel like, well, what can people really do for me? Even still now, like in the immediate aftermath, the only person I wanted was the only person I couldn't have in that moment. And no amount of help, nothing that people could do for me in that emotional space would ever fill the hole that was left behind when Amy died. And to try and accept help, even though I would have been willing to accept it, it felt fruitless. And so then it becomes this question of like, well, do I really burden other people with this when there's nothing they can do? That's how my logical side of my brain works through this. I think it's like, don't bother them with it. You know, what can they really do to fix this problem? Well, nothing. But I do recognize that that's not the only way that help comes, right? Like just spending time with people is its own way of help. it just wasn't, at least a little while ago or back then, it wasn't the type of help I was looking for, you know. Now slowly I feel like I am starting to recognize that more, where, you know, I jumped on doing that trip to Montreal, and that was a good thing for me to do. That was helpful, honestly, to be with you and with Jeff. Doing this trip with the students, that was helpful. And that was a healing week for me. So I'm starting to see ways that people can help with this. It's just, yeah, it's hard to see the fruit in it all the time. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Like thinking about that again, I think we've talked about this before, but being in a space to accept help, right? Like you're talking about different stages,
Yeah.
obviously, of the grief that you're going through. It sounds like, in the beginning where you mentioned like all you wanted was the person that wasn't there. And I mean, like, obviously, I'm speaking from my perspective here, but like, immediately following Amy passing, I was like, well, what can I do? What can I do? Like, I was like, I want to support you, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? Let's just start really small. Let's just text him every once in a while. Like, we don't need to respond, nothing, right? So I could see that, like, you were still accepting people's help. Like, you still responded and, took my calls or would play a game of Scrabble with me or something, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think you still accepted help. It was just maybe not in like, hey, let's deep dive about your trauma right now. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're not in the space right then. So I can respect that. I think it speaks
Yeah.
to, yeah, you knowing yourself the best, right? Like where you're at. But I wasn't going to not reach out to you. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, if he doesn't want to respond, that's totally fine. But I'm going to reach out no matter what. And whether
Yeah.
that's like, again, like lately I was thinking, like, why can't I accept help from people? Like, especially my wife. Like, I just try to be like I don't know, like the strong person always. Like, she's got so much going on. She was with Kai all day today, and here I am just like moping around, like feeling low. And it's like, it didn't matter. She just sat there, listened to me talk, offered advice, not really even advice. She just said, what can I do to help? Just showed me love. And I truly think about the people around me, you, my brother, like just the close people, Jeff, they make space in their hearts for us, for me to talk. There's never any push to get off the phone. It's beautiful. Like it makes me
Yeah.
emotional thinking about it because it's a love that I wish I thought about more. And it's the way I think about when I have conversations with you. There's never a time where I'm like, wrap it up. Like, I've heard this before. Like, no, absolutely not. You will always occupy a space in my heart. Like
Mm.
it's there. There's a space for you and for others. And so I'm
Yeah.
glad that yeah, you're taking opportunities when you see it, like this trip to Montreal and the West Coast Trail, not West Coast, sorry, Juan de Fuca Trail. You said something to me. I think it was a student that said this about being. You can sum it up better.
I think I know what you're going for here. The student that I was talking to last week about something unrelated, but she shared this line that I thought was really really cool. It was just, it's better to feel lonely around other people than lonely by myself. And I think that like captures something about what we can do when we need to receive help from people. It's like we might not know exactly how to do that, but are you putting yourself into spaces where you can at least be with people who want to love and help you? Or are you like isolating yourself and pulling yourself out of those spaces and avoiding people? And that's such like this natural reaction, I feel like when you're going through hard things, You know, I want to do it by myself. I want to just be by myself and not, you know, get into the messiness with other people. So, anyways, I'm just pushing myself to try and do that, just to be in that space with other people, even though I don't always feel like people can see or recognize everything I'm going through, and that's okay. But I'll still try and be with those people. I shared something out on social media that I got from my cousin about sitting in the mud with people, not trying to like pull them out of the mud, but really your job is just to sit in the mud with them until they're ready and they have the energy and they have the strength to try and get up out of that mud. And until that point, like, don't worry about doing anything else except just being there with them, encouraging them, saying you'll help them when the time is right.
You're willing just to be in a space with other people. Yeah. And realizing, I think that's such a good way to put it, like sitting in the mud. Because when I think about the times where I'm like in a real funk, I don't want anything but just like someone just, yeah, with me, which is what I experienced in Montreal with you guys. Like I was just in your presence. And like there's such beauty to that. There's love in that. Sometimes words don't even need to be spoken. Again, I'm a big believer, and if people need to cry, if people need to wail and moan, like it doesn't matter to me. I will listen. I will take that on. It's never a problem. When I think back to any amount of time in the hospital that I spent, my wife just sat there
Mm.
for 6 to 8 hours each day while I either slept or complained. She just, her presence, uh, that's all you could do at the time, you know? So trust yourself, trust your instincts. If you have someone that's in need and someone that's going through grief or trauma or pain, just trust yourself. You don't, like Jordan said, like there's no fixing it. you know, this happened. So just be real, be with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Share in their,
There might not be any relief from the pain.
no,
So don't put the pressure on yourself to fix it and make it better. Just be there.
yeah. As my counselor recently said to me, he's like, the goal is not to fix it. The goal is to validate
Mm-hmm.
people's feelings, you know, show them that they're loved. Like those are like you're not going to fix it. And so,
Yeah.
but it's something inside you that's just like, what can I do to take away this pain? And I think there's something
Mm-hmm.
not horrible. Like that's not a horrible thing, like
No.
people that love you don't want to see you in pain. So I think it's a natural response. Going back a little bit, Jordan, I know you kind of mentioned as Amy was going through just being in the hospital and stuff like that, people offered their services.
Yeah.
Um, in the last while, like, does that has that continued? Do people still reach out and offer
Um,
things, or
yeah, every once in a while. I'd say fewer people, but there are like a few core people who, again, it seems just like a gifting of theirs to like, I don't know, to have that, maybe call it boldness or whatever, to still reach out and say, hey, do you need this? I had someone provide me food just this week. A coworker who just has been really amazing at thinking of me. And so back in the fall, I told lots of people, like, I'm trying really hard just to say yes whenever people offer stuff like that, and try and avoid that feeling of pride of like, no, I shouldn't have to accept handouts and blah blah blah. Like, no, it's not about that. It's just, yeah, it's almost, it's the gesture, it's the meaning behind it of people thinking of me and thinking of a way to just try and show that they love me. And so yeah, it's really meaningful when they do that.
when we initially talked about this episode and sort of the idea of accepting help, you'd mentioned that there's different ways to offer help up to people, and that's not something I really thought of at the time. Like when I think about it now, I think like, oh yeah, like people offered food and meals, and someone close to us, a brother, let Viv stay in their suite for like 3 months, rent free,
Yeah.
like close to the
Yeah.
hospital. So it's like, yeah, again, right? Like just because you may not know what to say, there's other avenues to offer help. And yeah,
Yeah.
all people can say is, no, I'm fine. No worries.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being 100% honest, those things are nice, right? But they definitely didn't. I don't know. I guess they made things easier, but still, like, I don't know. I found I had to be careful. Like, I wrote this down too, but yeah, at times maybe I did lash out a little bit. It was pretty mild. I wasn't like mad in a demonstrative way. It's like, why can't people help more? Because even though they were doing all these things or like being available or wanting to show love and support, again, like it just wasn't what I needed. And no one could give me what I needed, right? So that's really depressing. We don't need to include that. I guess what I'm
No.
really trying to say is like what people did to help didn't help. Because it's not what I wanted.
No, and I mean, I don't. We shouldn't not include that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the rawness of
Yeah.
that tragedy, of this tragedy. Like, I love you, pal. I know I can only imagine, but I am very proud of you. I know it might not mean much, but
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm not grateful for the ways that they helped. That's definitely not what it is. And I think people understand that. Yeah.
I think there's a past too. I think, I mean, there was times where I was like, your prayers aren't going to do nothing. I don't want your prayers like back right off, like clash out. Like, this is my mom wanting these, can we put you on the prayer chain? No. So
Yeah.
people can understand. The people that are close to you understand.
Yeah.
You could lash out and they would just be like, no problem. Love you.
Yeah.
They give you a hug. Like I said, love covers those things. It
Yeah.
covers the good, the bad, the gritty, the ugly. It covers all those things, in my
Yeah.
opinion, anyways.
No, you're right.
So don't give it a second glance or
Mm.
thought.
Thanks, Jason.
Of course, these are hard topics to talk about, think about.
I know we've been talking a lot about accepting help in emotional sense from friends or family, or giving help to people we care about. But I mean, there are other ways that sometimes need to accept help, and I know you want to talk a little bit about the ways that you have more recently started to accept help, and kind of how you got there.
Yeah, I think that's important to share. Um, I've mentioned it a bunch of times on the podcast that I've been going to counseling for about, I want to say about 4 years at least. But it took a long time to get to that point. My wife kind of not pestering me, but maybe you should go. It would probably be helpful. And eventually went to two different counselors and landed on the one I'm in seeing now. And um, but it was super helpful. Like just again, I don't want to take anything away of like the struggle to go is real. And I've talked to other people like to make the appointment. And it's just like I just battled myself a lot. Like, oh, do I need it? Like I just went last week. Like I shouldn't need it another time. Like again, like there's no there's no set of rules when it comes to trauma in your life. Like there's no rule book or some sort of like path, like start here and end here and that's it. Trauma keeps score on your body and your mind, and it could take a long time. And I was really thankful for the people in my life that pushed it. um, I'm finding the best way to do counseling is like book a whole bunch of appointments either once every month or once every week. I'm doing every 2 weeks right now. And yeah, it's been super helpful. I think everyone could use it. It's expensive, so unfortunately for people that don't have really good benefits like myself, it is really tough. But I've given that option to people before. Like, hey, I will figure out a way to pay for your counseling. I believe in it so much. Like, go, we will figure it out. So my wife reminds me all the time because I think I only get about 11 times each year. So I can burn through that pretty fast. But again, like you can't put a price on your mental health. So, but Jordan, I know recently I told you that I went on medication. Um, Also, really, really big decision for me. Um, a lot of swirling thoughts of like, wow, I don't know. That do I don't know. Like my initial thing is like, I'm not crazy. Like, why do I gotta go on antidepressants? Like kind of question myself a lot of like, do I need it or do I not? One day I was like, I gotta do it for my wife, for myself, and for my little boy, Kai. Like that, those are the easiest things I could do it for. Um, so it's not sure if it's helping. It's only been maybe 3.5 weeks, but I was happy to start it finally and get that help. Because I often think back to you telling me a bit about Amy and how medication helped her, and you kind of periodically had mentioned it to me too, right? Like, don't rule out medication. Like it can help. Like don't let it scare you. Plenty of people are on medication for depression, and it's just about getting you to, I don't know, get to a balance. You want to balance your mood out, and it's not going to take your happiness away. Like that's why initially I was like, well, I don't want to change who I am, and my doctor's like, no, it's not going to do that. It's just going to, when you're feeling low, it's going to just maybe keep you more level instead of like really far down. And when I say really good, like counseling is really good, I more mean not to say like it's super easy. It's not. It's very it's emotionally draining, and it is tough because I want to be real with people, but it's way better than the alternative. Because for me in my life, the alternative was just like really negative sort of addiction type behaviors that I just used my whole life as trauma responses. So, it's just trying to get through, I don't know, what you're feeling, maybe in a slightly more positive way than sticking to what's really easy to do, right? Like scrolling on your phone, social media, or keeping really busy. I was really good at that before cancer. I mean, I'd work a 12-hour day and then run 15K, like no problem. Like that's ridiculous. Like again, it's easy to like fall into that. So um yeah. So
Well, thanks for sharing. I know it's it was hard hard decisions to make about your own mental health, but important ones, and hopefully that can be something that springboards into good things for others too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And again, I said it before, but I want people to feel like there's hope, because there is hope. And you got to fight for yourself, but there are other people around you that, can help nudge you too. So yeah, happy to talk about that journey. So yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
yeah. Thanks for joining us for this topic, and
Talk to everyone again soon.
yeah, have a good week.